Hi, welcome to one of our webinars in the WAGGGS Western Hemisphere Governance Series. My name is Marnie Hall and I'm a WAGGGS Western Hemisphere Governance Consultant. And with me today...
My name is Angela Dawson. As with the case with Marnie, we work across the region to try to improve the governance of a number of member organizations, right now in particular with the Caribbean.
Absolutely. So guess what one of the things is you need to do if you want to have successful governance?
I don't know, but I have a feeling you're going to tell us.
That dreaded thing called a skills audit.
Oh no! Seriously?
Yes.
Can you make this easy for us? We know that's an issue.
Absolutely. For the next 20 or so minutes, let's talk about skills audits, and I guarantee you're going to have some easy walk-away solutions and actionable items after we talk about building your Team Incredible. Welcome to Building Team Incredible. How and why to do a skills audit. So as we said, we are regional governance consultants, and we are also Western Hemisphere volunteers.
And one of the few places you'll actually see some of the behind the scenes things that we've had to do over time. I'm sure there's lots of stories from people out there with us today that have the behind the scenes view too.
Absolutely, absolutely. But a successful behind the scenes, right? Working hard behind the scenes makes a really great product out for people in the public, and that's why we really need to do a skills audit on our boards, because we really want to have the best board possible so that we have a really fantastic MO and great programs for our girls. So I want to give you a resource alert right off at the top. This new toolkit created by WAGGGS called Be the Change is really outstanding. Not everything included in this toolkit will apply to a skills audit or working with your board or governance, but I really like this idea of see the change, plan the change, make the change, and share the change. This resource is available in all 3 languages, English, Spanish, and French. So be sure to check it out. So, Team Incredible. Doesn't everybody want a Team Incredible leading their membership organization?
Did you see the movie The Incredibles too?
Totally.
I so wanted to be able to meet Elastigirl. She would have been amazing.
Don't you think she might have been a Girl Guide?
I hadn't thought of that, but you know what? I wouldn't be surprised.
Anyway, your Team Incredible will lead your MO to great things. So how does a skills audit really help us to create this team?
Well, why don't we chat a bit about that one today, and maybe we can break that one down to really what a skills audit is. So what does it mean, and what do we do it? Why it's important? Why are we even having this webinar? If it wasn't important, we wouldn't have the webinar, but why really is it that important? Then I think a third place is what are skills? So what do we really mean, and how do we define skills? And maybe we can come up with a couple of examples, because that always helps put things a little bit clearer. And then sort of what our next steps are. Does that sound all right?
That sounds great. I think it sounds like we'll have a really great time here today.
So why don't we start with, so what's a skills audit,
Marnie? Yes. So for the sake of simplicity, when we for this webinar, we'll be talking about and using the term board. But board can also apply to a council or an executive. It just depends on what's going on in your MO. So, time for a definition. A skills audit is essentially a process for measuring and recording the skills of an individual or group. The main purpose for conducting a skills audit in an organization is to identify the skills and knowledge that the organization requires, as well as the skills and knowledge that the organization currently has. So, let's break this down. So first, it is a process for measuring and recording the skills of an individual or group. All right, so a process means there is an order to the evaluation, right?
First things first, second things second?
Exactly.
Got it.
There is some thinking that goes behind the project. A skills audit cannot be done in 10 minutes. Although, I'm not going to lie, you're going to wish it was a quick process when you get into it. But if you do it correctly, your board and who's leading it, the facilitators, must commit to the time to the process. A well-done skills audit equals a stronger board, and a stronger board contributes to the overall strength of your movement.
Marnie, you're the definition, or the part that you're looking at in particular, talks about measuring and recording. So I think that's probably a really important thing to bring out too. This is something, as you said, it's more than a 10-minute exercise. It is a longer exercise, but really needing to make sure that someone's there and paying attention to what's being said, that they're putting it down, pen to paper, on a keyboard, on the computer, however you want to do that, for not only for the participants to see when they're doing it, but that it also exists as a record for the organization of what the skills are that they may need and what the results of that skills audit are.
Exactly. This is not a raise your hand and move on type of activity. So, how about the next part then? I'm paraphrasing a bit here. The main purpose for a skills audit is to identify the skills and knowledge that an organization requires. That's pretty straightforward. When you get to the point of conducting your skills audit, think of using some NLDP methods. Brainstorming would be an obvious tool here for you to use, but remind your group to think strategically about the skills and knowledge your MO requires. Keep in mind the strategic plan of your organization. The board and its work should always ladder up to the strategic plan. And finally, and the skills and knowledge that your organization currently has. Now, this can be sticky. Although tough, your board members need to be very honest about the skills and knowledge that are currently represented. And the point of a skills audit is not to point out a person's faults or failures. I think this is a great time where we should talk about how we should be looking at our board for the skills audit. We need to be thinking of our board as a whole unit, not just as individuals. Yes, individuals make up our board, but if we think about the strengths and weaknesses as the collective board, then we have a broader view. Oh, sure, we're going to end up having to pick individuals to shore up where we've decided we have deficiencies. But at this point, if we take a step back and audit our board as a unit, everyone becomes more fair and less personal. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be easy, but I do say give it a try.
I think, Marnie, to add to that, from certainly the work that we've done in the various MOs, one of the things that's important is to really try to keep the group focused. We all have lots of stories that we like to tell. People may bring up some past issues that they think are related to it, but as the facilitator, it's really important that you keep the group focused on doing that skills audit. And that's a tough one. So that's, are there a couple of ideas that anybody out there might have within the group of how you could actually manage this? Oh, see a note coming in from Stephanie. Stephanie, thanks a lot. You indicate the parking lot. That's fantastic. For those of you that might not know that or know what the parking lot is, it's really where you set up, you can set it up at the time or set it up earlier on, a place where you can write down visibly for everybody comments that people make that are not related to your discussion. So it's really important. It can be on a computer screen, a big piece of paper, a chalkboard, a whiteboard, but where everybody in the group can see and can acknowledge that you've indicated there's a conversation that somebody still needs to have. So you're going to have to come back to that one. Just because they're on the parking lot doesn't mean they're gone and forgotten, but they're just not appropriate for this point in time. And you'll get back to them when you've finished doing the business that you need to do. It's a fantastic idea.
The point of being a facilitator is to really keep the conversation focused on the objectives.
So, Marnie, we've got all of our people focused, but we're trying to keep them focused because of the skills audit that's important. Can you maybe go into a bit of why that's so important for them?
Absolutely. So I think we can sum this up fairly quickly. If we don't have the correct skills that we need as an organization on our board, we will have deficiencies. And these deficiencies mean that our board is not as strong as it could be. And then our MO is not as strong as it could be. And we, as an MO, cannot deliver the best program for girls. And we all know that a strong program grows membership. So, Angela, what is a skill when we're talking about a skill audit?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. I think when we talk about skills, we can talk about a hard skill and a soft skill. So maybe I'll just start first with the hard skills. Hard skills are teachable. It's something for which you might actually have gone to school. You've learned something, you get a degree. It's something that specific that gives you a qualification for a role, in this case on a board, but it might be for a role in life. If you think of somebody with accounting skills, they've gone to school, they're an accountant, they have that degree, they have that skill. If you can think of it as a medical doctor, you want to make sure that that medical doctor has the right skills before you're going to visit them for whatever might ail you. So really the hard skills are the skills that you learn formally. Soft skills, on the other hand, are skills that are more on the emotional side. There's things that you can't teach, but they're really important when we start working in a group, and it's how you relate to one another. So teamwork. Do you play well in the sandbox with the others, or do you not? And really, we know that we can all improve in some of those areas. We're not saying that how you're born, that's exactly how it's going to be, but it's not something that you will get that degree from. It's not a formal education that will necessarily give you that. How patient are you with people? Do you actually stay true to your word? Do you honor the time commitment and timing that you've said? Those are all some of the soft skills. And on our boards, we really want to have a makeup of people that have both the hard skills and the soft skills. Exactly. You need a little bit of both in order to make it happen. So how do we then capture what we need and what we've got?
Well, first we need to assess what our MOs need before we can assess our weaknesses, right?
Absolutely.
So what are some methods that we can use? We've already talked about the brainstorming idea, where everyone shares any idea, no idea is a bad idea, and everything is recorded on the board. But there's also another way of going about brainstorming. Think of it kind of as a round robin. This gets everyone involved. So ask each person in the group to share one hard skill and one soft skill that the board needs to be successful. These could then be scribed on the board and everyone could see the intersection of their ideas. So what ideas do you guys have?
Hey, Marnie, there's a note here from Melanie. She says, compare our MO with an assessment of another MO.
This is an interesting idea. I caution a little bit on this because every MO has different strategic goals. What one MO needs, your MO might not. But I will say, if your board is stuck, then looking at someone else's assessment might be a great way to kind of get everyone thinking in the right direction.
Marnie, Kathy chimed in and she was talking maybe more about stuff from her MO. Her question was, what about investigating our strategic plan?
Oh my God, I love that idea. That is excellent. You could break apart your strategic plan, put the goals of the plan in one column, and in the other column list the skills that are needed to achieve that goal. Really fantastic ideas. Thanks, everybody.
All right, so now we have the list of skills. We need to figure out how our board fits in with this one. And there's probably a few ways that we can do this. I think Marnie and I would suggest from what we've seen that you're probably better off doing this in a separate meeting. So this is something that's going to require a fair bit of thought time as well. But it really allows your board members to think about their own skills and how they fit with that list that's generated. So you want to give them that time to have looked at the list that you've just generated and then see where their fit actually happens.
Absolutely.
But really, if we take a look at it and say, how can we do that? There's a couple of ways. Really simple. List the skills and say a yes, no. That one you might not actually need to do as a separate meeting. That's a really easy tick. I have it or I don't. Some people, however, might not be sure whether they tick the yes or the no, because I kind of have it, but I might not be confident enough to put a yes down because, then they might really put me in charge of fund development, and that's really not what I want. So you could make it a little bit more detailed, and you could actually then put it out over a range of, as an example, 1 to 5. And so you could allow people to say, I have a little bit of this skill, but really not a lot. And that gives you a much better picture of how that all fits together. But Marnie, when we were in Barbados at the training that we did with the national advisors, we did something, we went outside, and I was really psyched to be outside, but it was something that we did with a rope.
Exactly.
Can you explain that one a little bit?
Sure. Well, and we all know the NLDP is a great way of kind of changing the way that we think and really getting everyone out of their comfort zones, which can really help when you're doing a skills audit because it's not a very comfortable moment for anyone. So maybe something you want to try is the experience rope. So how this works, get a rope, any kind will work, lay it out on the ground, and make one area very experienced, one end, and the other end no experience. Then you, as the facilitator, can then shout out different types of skills that your board and your group has decided are important to have, and then everyone can place themselves along that rope as to where they think they fit. So an example might be knows government tax laws. And what happens if everyone stands at the very experienced end? Well, you have a very experienced tax group, but you may realize that everyone on your board has the same skills. And sadly, this is as much a problem as no one having any knowledge of government tax laws. It's all a balance. Does that make sense?
Marnie, we had a few other examples from the NLDP that were maybe a little less gamish. I'm not sure, being Canadian in our winters, sometimes they're a little bit chilly. I'm not sure we'd want to take an experience rope outside. You can certainly still do that inside. But there were a few other ideas that we'd had about how you could do something like this that might be a little bit more around the table type exercises.
Sure. So have you thought about the experience wheel?
Ooh, what's that?
Absolutely. So what you do is you make a small grid on the chalkboard and then draw straight lines for the skills that you have determined, your group has determined, are the skills that are needed, that are must-haves. So, for example, if you're trying to fill the role for an international commissioner, we might think that the foremost, and you can have many more than 4, this is just this example, 4 of the important skills that a person needs to have are securing visas, typing, having taken a travel safety course, and the love of travel. So then you ask everyone in the group to plot where they sort of fit on the grid. So with the center being, I don't have any experience at all, to the outside being, I have fabulous amounts of experience. So I have everyone plot where they fit, and then draw lines to see exactly where the group seems to dip a little bit in their skills. So for example, this person here maybe doesn't have all the skills we need in taking a travel safety course.
Maybe that's all the person needs.
Exactly. So then if that is possible and the MO has the money, that is a skill, a thing that maybe through some training that person can get.
Probably not quite the same with typing. You can't just take a 20-minute typing course.
Exactly. So then maybe it's better to move on to another candidate to be able to find someone who has the typing skills and then has maybe other skills that you can shore up. But does this mean that this only applies to a certain person? This can also apply to your board. But when you realize that maybe your board is very deficient in one skill, then you have to assess, do we bring on someone new that fills that space, or can we do it through continued learning?
I get it.
Yeah. So, Angela, do you kind of want to recap a little bit of what we've talked about today?
Yeah, I think really when we're talking through what we've talked about, we've started off by talking about the fact that the skills audit was a process that we had to go through. So we had to be able to plan it, to prepare it, to recognize that it would take a certain amount of time for it. And that it was a process to determine what the skills the board needed to be able to support the organization. So it's looking back, and we had a great example from someone saying, go back to your strategic plan, look at that. So look at what your board needs, what supports the organization, and then what skills does your actual current board have? And what are the gaps that are there? So where are areas that they may not have the skills that they need? And how can you then actually shore up those skills that are needed to make sure that your board can be as strong as it possibly can? And that, as we know, once you've got a strong board, your member organization becomes that much stronger, which is really what we're looking to have.
So we have a challenge for you. We challenge you to go out and create your own Team Incredible. I think if you use some of the elements or all of the elements from this process, you will be able to build that awesome team that takes your MO to that next level.
Think Elastigirl can join the board?
As long as she does it girl guiding style.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks again for joining us. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to hit us up on email.